We have an interesting array here, and I found the discussion fascinating, because actually what you have done, I think there, Andre, is to lay out a very special case, very well, but it is specific to Germany, and it is a fact about structure, not about culture. What Umberto added was a different structure, and this continued with some of the things that Patricio said. Now, we have a performative contradiction here, because in Pierre Bourdieu's work, and I worked with him since the late 60s, until I broke with him. Now, this is significant. I'm not telling you a story about me. I'm telling you a story about how sociologists, the better ones, such as Luc Boltanski, Laurent Thévenot, broke with Bourdieu, whereas inferior theorists like Fukuyama, who is inferior as a social theorist, remained faithful. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because I want to challenge your use, which I think is not helpful to your argument, which I like, your use of cultural capital. Frankly, I would say there is no such thing, in the sense that Bourdieu put this concept forward, and in the sense that you beautifully illustrated with your recurrent example of plumbing. This is a lovely example. Bourdieu would have had nothing but contempt for it, because the French educational system was so intellectualized and, well, let's just call it intellectualized, that for all those years after the Paris exhibition of 1850, any technical skill or demand for technical skill, such as that which was represented in the 1880s by Victor Duruy's Éducation spéciale, was systematically repudiated by the system and turned into something intellectualized. In other words, technical skills, requirements, and here, Umberto, I don't know whether I will be correct, because I don't know Peru well enough, to include indigenous skills, homeopathy, for example. The structure could not accommodate them. It pushed them to one side. So we're into a structure agency problem here. We can't treat one without the other. And in terms of the agents, I think this concept, not you, Andre, but this concept, which I don't think is helpful, is far too homogeneous. I mean, I was brought up in a heavy engineering family. And the contestation of values, which was possible in Britain, which had a decentralized educational system at its roots, the contestation of those values was profound. There was no shared basis on which to organize a professional ethos other than working together in a very pragmatic a non-ideational sense. So there have been various attempts in decentralized systems, and I'm sorry, this is the basis of one of my books, the difference that that structure makes to what can happen within it, is that quite often you struggle to find anything that they have in common, because they are not taught it. And therefore, I think you would be much better off and reach much closer agreement as a triad if you took these as case studies of differences in structure differences in culture, differences in cultural organization, and stop trying to put it under this umbrella of cultural capital. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Monsignor Marcelo, I thought the President Archer had asked for, but
Thank you.
You had the word, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, and I have it to the President.
Yes, but we need to put rules concrete in the discussion, but there are also an ethic in the discussion. In the contrary, is also the German people, many philosophers speak about this, no? So I want to come back. I was very admired about the very nice speech that gave our German professor. And I admire Germany also for the situation that have and the help that do in general. Well, Latin America, Caritas was incredible. So we need to be very, very grateful for the collaboration that make the German conference to all people in Latin America, es clear. Pero quiero volver al español porque aquí tengo el texto en español. Es un problema que aparentemente no tiene que ver con lo que estamos discutiendo, pero en el fondo tiene mucho que ver. Cuando el Papa, en el último año de pontificado, el Papa Benedicto, que como todos sabemos es alemán, aunque trabajó mucho en Roma, pero es alemán, recibe al nuevo embajador alemán, después del viaje que hace por Alemania del Norte, donde otros papas no habían ido, como en Hamburgo, y que vino muy contento. Primero dice dos cosas que han sido importantes en la discusión. Primero dice, cosa que repetirá después el Papa Francisco, que la Iglesia tiene derecho a intervenir directamente en el orden temporal, porque tiene un mensaje de Cristo que también hace al orden temporal, en cuanto que el orden temporal está creado por Dios. Papa Francisco dirá, la Iglesia tiene obligación de intervenir en política, porque si la política es la forma más alta de caridad, según Pablo VI, ¿por qué no va, por supuesto, intervenir bien para el bien común? Y el Papa Benedicto dice, es necesario porque por el pecado original es muy difícil ser justos, porque siempre ser justos significa dejar algo. Pero ahora quiero ir a otro tema. Y es esto que el Papa, después de agradecer al embajador y a Alemania por la gran colaboración con la Iglesia y sobre todo creo que una de las cosas importantes es toda la educación teológica y religiosa que hay en las universidades alemanas, que en Latinoamérica no hay, sino las católicas, pero como no estatal, en cambio allí hay en el Estado. Y esto es fundamental, porque evidentemente si no se enseña, no se sabe. Luego de eso, dice, en este punto quiero afrontar otro aspecto preocupante, que al parecer se difunde a través de tendencias materialistas y hedonistas, sobre todo en los países llamados mundo occidental, o sea, y particularmente en el mío, o sea, la discriminación sexual de las mujeres. Toda persona, tanto hombre como mujer, está destinada a ser para los demás. Una relación que no respete el hecho de que el hombre y la mujer tienen la misma dignidad constituye un crimen grave contra la humanidad. Ya es hora de detener en el modo enérgico la prostitución, así como la amplia difusión de material pornográfico en Internet. La Santa Sede se preocupará de esto en un modo constante, especialmente en el caso de Alemania. Bueno, Papa Francisco luego encomienda a la Academia que se ocupe de estas formas nuevas de esclavitud. Yo creo que este es un problema muy preocupante y que hace al orden social y a la relación Estado-sociedad que nosotros tratamos de ver. Gracias.
Adrian, your turn.
Andre, thank you very much. I thought that was a terrific paper, and I hugely enjoyed it. Two points. One follows on from what Margaret said, and that is, I think that we would do well to try and conceptualize some of these terms. I mean, I always thought that capital really should be limited to what it primarily denotes, which is all things to do with essentially money, transactions, investment of that kind, but that for other terms, I think we should try and use words to connote the difference. So rather than talking about social capital, let's talk about trust in cooperation, right? Rather than talking about human capital, let's talk about knowledge and skills. And, you know, the work of Bernard Stiegler is very interesting because he talks about savoir-faire. So it's not just intellectual, it's also something practical, right? And I think the academic and the vocational need to be paired much more. And I think the German model is interesting because it does a bit of both. People who learn professions, as you rightly emphasized, you know, with all the ethos that it implies, learn them at specialized institutions. They don't go to university to become a plumber. They go to particular technical colleges. But those technical colleges also teach some academic skills. So there's no separation. There's rather kind of blending of different types of knowledge and skills. So I think that would also capture better. Just like we wouldn't talk about environmental capital, but nature, right? Just like we wouldn't talk about people as carriers of capital, rather as human beings who are embodied and embedded. So it's just, you know, I think for us all an encouragement to use terms that are more appropriate than seeing everything through the lens of capital. But I appreciate that you were situating this in a certain debate. But my question to you is this: what role can the church, indeed the churches, play to make that sort of ethos and that sort of culture that you rightly emphasize, to make that more central? You know, what contribution, you know, can the church make that perhaps no other institution can? Because it seems to me that what we're struggling with here is to try and see how we can bring about a greater consensus for these ideas and how we can mobilize more people around those ideas. And I think that we need to think more about the role of the churches as platforms, as, you know, bridges, as institutions that can mobilize people in a way that probably no civil society institution can, but also no state or market institution. Thank you.
Two people in the line, three now. Patricio, okay, Samani, Patricio, and Bielecki.
Thank you, Andre. I too have some problem with the notion of cultural capital. Because if by culture you mean cultural goods, like monuments, no problem. But I understand that you meant something different. Because you see, capital is a fundamental factor of production, but also labor. Why not talking of cultural labor? Why should we talk always cultural capital, environmental capital, etc.? If you read the last work by Ekman, the Nobel Prize winner in economics, I admire him. Perhaps he wrote that after having obtained the Nobel Prize, where he says, we economists, we have to stop to refer everything to capital, because after all, capital is one of the many factors of production. Because the very moment you attach culture to the capital, you are devitalizing the cultural dimension, which is always to modify and to take a dialectical role. Second question is specific the following. I know the dual system, the German, and I admire it, no doubt. The question is the implementability of this model in those countries or in those areas characterized by heavy dualism. Take the case of Italy. We have dualistic structure, north-south. In the southern part, there are no companies, or the few companies, they are not willing to establish such a link with the local authorities, the Chamber of Commerce. So we have the Chamber of Commerce, but they are empty boxes. So what would you suggest in cases where a country is characterized by heavy forms of both economic and social dualism in order to implement what you refer to your country? Thank you.
Patricio.
Solamente a propósito de la intervención de Monseñor, mi observación de ninguna manera pretendía decir que la Iglesia no tenga derecho a intervenir. Estamos en un Estado acá, digamos. Sería un contrasentido. El punto de discusión, donde también el Papa Ratzinger, como gran teólogo, estuvo de acuerdo que en las formulaciones de la ortodoxia de la Iglesia habían elementos ideológicos también, que no derivaban de la Sagrada Escritura. Y por lo tanto, el magisterio no tenía la autoridad para cerrar. Entonces su intervención, no la suya, la intervención del magisterio. Bueno, pero cuando pone usted la autonomía.
Elemental. Dice Santo Tomás que escribe la Suma Teológica y la mayor parte de la Suma Teológica es para las virtudes.
Should we have a dialogue?
No, pero quiero decir...
Okay.
Sí, puede. Bueno, les recuerdo simplemente que en el centésimo año número 3, Juan Pablo II nuevamente coloca una distinción muy importante. Decía, tratándose de principios doctrinales, está en juego la máxima autoridad de la Iglesia. Tratándose de cuestiones históricas, la Iglesia no pretende dar juicios definitivos porque no atañe al ámbito del magisterio. Entonces aquí estamos justamente en el ámbito político, en el ámbito económico, buscando alternativas. Hay esa prudencia necesaria que también tener a la hora de leer los textos y las intervenciones de la Iglesia.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you. Firstly, thanks for your excellent lecture and very inspiring. And secondly, let me share with small, only theoretical notion that the term cultural capital suggested the specific conception in the fundament has a specific conception, maybe ideology of instrumental rationality, and deeper the conception of human being who is not very near to our point of view, most of us. Thank you.
Thank you. We only have 5 minutes for the final.
Okay, I'm convinced. Yeah, this is by no way essential to my arguments. This concept, and I admit that maybe I become a felt prey of the normal business community in which I interact. Yeah, involuntarily introducing this term in. But what I wanted to say here is, of course, that there are certain habits and traditions inside of the German public which help these institutions to emerge, and stabilize them even. And what we see today is that, for example, in the 1980s, Margaret Thatcher came to Germany because she said, okay, we have problems with industry going down. We want to introduce the dual system of education in the UK. Yeah, and after having the first conversation with these small and medium entrepreneurs, who are round the clock engaging for young people and the education and spend their Saturdays voluntarily in a professional school taking exams. Yeah, she said, okay, this is not going to happen. But so what I wanted to say, and this is also particularly answering what Stefano was asking. Yeah, so it's very difficult. Yeah, to introduce these kind of things if they are not here. I mean, it's like something like the prisoner's dilemma. Yeah, if you have a solution, then it is another stable situation. If you don't have it, it's very difficult to introduce this. Yeah, that's why I also do not propose it here as the solution for Latin America. Yeah, because it's, but it can. I mean, I'm deeply convinced that every country has to find its own way. Yeah, to in a way civilize economic processes. Yeah, or civilize exchange. But we can of course learn from each other in the sense that I have to ask ourselves, how can I, with my cultural heritage, I won't speak any more about capital, but my cultural heritage, how can I maybe find similar solutions or can be inspired by these things which the other his proponent. And so I think, and I wanted to, I cited this example, the cooperation with the Salesian and the company, yeah, to maybe this is a way, yeah, you have much more vibrant religious orders in Latin America, much more lively church activity, open people, young people. How maybe they can pick up these kind of examples and offer something to the companies, because many companies would like to go, for example, in a certain country, but they don't find educated people there. Yeah, and if you have such an example widespread in many regions, this would also help the region to be more attractive for foreign direct investment.
Thank you very much to everybody for the rich discussion, contribution to. So, up to the presidency. Great. Great. Professor, yes.
First of all, I apologize. You know, I was not. But I'm telling that exactly in Italy now we are trying to say we have to become like the German in introducing the dual system. That's what the government is doing. And as a Catholic Social Week, we did put this as one of our 4 suggestions to the government. What is the problem? Exactly what you said, and also Stefano said. First of all, a terrible opposition from schools and professors, because now we have this law which is called alternanza scuola-lavoro, and basically all the professors, all of a sudden, they have to find for hundreds of students some kind of dual activity, and they don't know where to start from. So I think we should not throw away the baby with the water, but we must try to improve gradually this. But the opposition is very strong. It's also ideological opposition. And people going to the square saying we are exploited by McDonald's, things like that. I think that one solution is that the alternanza scuola-lavoro is not just going into a company. We must plan other things, like, for example, project for the development of the local area, or people going to museum, or people. It's not just companies. It can be also public administration. But just to give you an idea of what's going on in Italy, and I really think that if we succeed, we can reduce significantly youth education. So I'm in favor in principle, but we are really in the middle of this process, and it is quite difficult to realize it.
Thank you.